What's up guys, SkyKevin here, and today we're doing an updated solo player guide for Last Oasis.
Nice dinghy, bro.
So, let's get started.
Get back to farming. You got another dinghy to make, brother. You got another dinghy to make, brother. You got another dinghy to make, brother.
When playing as a solo player, your choice of walker is going to be relatively limited to the comparative size of many of the much larger walkers. Initially, you'll most likely start with the dinghy and belang walker. The dinghy is a great all-around farming transport with a quick acceleration and one of the best uses for torque of any walker in the game. However, it does fall short when it comes to the weight it can carry at a max of only 1,380 pounds. This is a walker that many of the large clans use as well for personal transport and solo farming walkers. It's also very cheap to repair the legs and wings, so you can get back on your feet quickly with this walker if you do end up getting raided. The belang walker is the new base building walker that will pack itself into a base core and allow you to build a stone base on top of it. This is a huge measure for small groups and solo players, especially since at the beginning of this season, stone was considered a solid material and so far unbreakable from anything less than Hellfire arrows. Now that they are obtainable, however, you do need to keep in mind that it takes only 3 to 4 Hellfire arrows to break through one stone wall. All that being said, this walker does give you the ability to store a lot of your materials in a safe location, and to drop it off there is pretty much the current meta as of making this video. Since the Hellfire arrow is further down the tech tree, and not only that, also requires a few extra steps to craft, and includes the fiery concoction ingredient, which is quite rare, chances are, if you're a solo player, most people won't try to break into your base. And whenever possible, you should try to leave your walker packed in its belang form so that nobody can actually get inside. But that being said, generally speaking, you can leave your base open and it won't be worth it for people to raid. I think this was a great change by Donkey Crew, and it definitely made it possible for solo players to leave their base up and be relatively confident that no one is going to waste the resources to break into it, unless for some reason they suspect something very valuable to be there. I would suggest that you don't keep valuable things in that base, and still consider logging them out on a storage walker like a toboggan, or on a storage walker with a base inside of it. But I leave that for things like tablets, Rupu gel, and fragments, or anything else that you consider a valuable object. That way, if somebody does break into your base, really all they're going to get are maybe a few crafting stations and a bit of non-rare, common crafting resources. Aside from these two walkers, a good upgrade from the dinghy would be the mollusk, because it allows you to have a compartment inside the walker where you can safely store chests and crafting stations that are only accessible by breaking open the walker body itself. Of any of the much larger walkers that require tablets to unlock, obviously there's nothing stopping you from having your own solo Falco if you want. But as a solo player, I doubt it will really give you much of a competitive advantage, given that it is a much larger target with a lot more costs associated with the very little combat benefits for a single person to use. The only other walkers you might consider much later in the game is something like a Domus walker and a Panda walker, so that you can carry all your other walkers with you. We need to remember that as a solo player, having a larger walker isn't really going to give you that much more protection from a group of larger players. The moment they board your walker, you're going to have just as much of a disadvantage as if you were on a smaller walker. One great advantage of the Panda walker is that you can have a lot of smaller walkers like the Camelop or the Cobra packed inside of it, and that can give you a competitive advantage, especially if another clan is attacking you, because you can set them up and forget about them and use them to increase your productivity, almost like support walkers. Otherwise, I wouldn't suggest that you go and try to unlock the Titan Walker, because it's not necessarily going to give you any sort of combat advantage, since you're going to be one player on the walker where other people can board. In fact, it probably gives you a disadvantage, as it gives the opponents so many different places where they can board your walker. Combat. One of the most daunting things as a solo player is what exactly happens when you are almost always outnumbered in a fight. You can stick to the 2-player cap tiles, but I understand how unrealistic that is given the current random spread between the different types of tiles. At some point, you'll have to venture outside of that area to progress. My number one rule for any combat in Last Oasis is simply stay alive. Often, I see players get into melee combat and simply keep swinging until they down every opponent or they fall themselves. The reality is, even if you're better, when you're outnumbered, all they have to do is keep the engagement going until you finally go down. This is especially the case if you're trying to defend your walker from a large amount of borders. In most cases, if you see the enemy coming, you want to press H to keep the walker moving and keep distance from you and the attacking walker. That way, if they do have someone grapple over to try and board your ship, you'll be able to repel them and keep moving, hopefully, to get away. In this case, if they end up landing a few hits on you while you're trying to save your walker and they take the upper hand, it might be time to abandon ship. Many people at this point will often try to stay and fight it out, hoping to outwit the opponent or outskill them, but in my experience, if you're already down in a fight, it's better not to take those risks and heal up for the next engagement. Sometimes this isn't possible and you'll have to jump off ship, and it's often best to fight in an area with trees or mountains so you can use your grappling hook to keep your distance away from the enemy. At this point, you're going to want to take as many 1v1s as you can from the oncoming enemies. This is best done by luring them away from your walker, one at a time, to a cliffside or some area with cover. Once you can get someone to engage you in a 1v1 fight, your goal is obviously to take them down, but remember, you have to do so very quickly. If at any point in the fight, even though you're winning, one of their teammates joins the fight, you want to grapple away and try to re-engage on your own terms. Oftentimes, players will want to keep fighting, but you'll find that not only are you at a disadvantage as soon as it's a 2v1, you'll also have more coming very soon, making it much harder to disengage as the numbers add up. If you keep this in mind and stay disciplined, you'll be able to outlast your opponents, especially if you can keep killing them until they run out of water on their walker on a clan-capped tile. Logistics. When it comes to being a solo player, a lot has been done to help keep your items safe. As mentioned previously, the Belang and Siler Walker are great additions to the game when it comes to making bases mobile and difficult to break into. Now that stone faces take Hellfire arrows to break into them, it really has changed the balance of materials required to materials lootable from the base. Now, this isn't foolproof, of course. Many players will find the large clans are able to make large quantities of these arrows to break into these bases, so only keep resources that you are okay with losing while you're offline. A good suggestion would be to pack the base into the walker form so that in order to break it, they need to use upwards of 90 Hellfire arrows for your most valued items. In these cases, you have two options. The trade station has its own benefits of availability, and storing items off the map will require a lot of back and forth and its own associated risks. One of the other downsides to using a stone base is of course the upkeep cost as well. This will cost you money every hour that the base is on the map, so building a large mega base will quickly become an unreasonable upkeep for your items. As far as I'm concerned in this regard, the best case scenario is to focus on keeping your base small, only about a 2x3 or 3x3, to make it not worth the resources to break in. Doors are also a weak spot, so building multiple layers will help to force invaders to waste even more to reach the room that they actually want to get into. I've done a full base building video guide on the past, so check out that video if you haven't already. One thing to remember with this is just have multiple areas in your base that they have to break into every time. It will make it much more costly for someone to go to each compartment of your base as opposed to breaking one wall and having access to everything. Staying prepared is also definitely an important part of being a solo player, so make sure you have extra armor, weapons, and water on your walker at all times. So should you get into a fight, you have more spawns to keep going. The last thing you want is to get jumped and not have a chance at redemption. Additionally, your armor and weapon will be a huge factor in whether you win or lose those 1v1 fights, so make sure to keep aiming for higher tiers of armor, as it can be the difference from you winning or losing everything. One final tactic I would like to mention in this regard is that you can fight larger walkers by yourself by using a few tools like the remote ballista, as they are something that you can still use while you're driving your walker and shoot behind you, keeping your distance. If you can stay at a range and keep firing things on unsuspecting groups, then you have the possibility to take out a wing or a leg, keeping them stuck there and giving you the ability to move your walker away to a safe location and move in on foot. Indeed, Being able to not worry about a walker at all gives you the freedom to go wherever you want and have the advantage on a ground fight. It will still take a lot of skill and patience, and some groups will be just too large for you to fight, and that's something that you have to accept. But if you're smart about who you attack and when, the new bind to walker system will give you every opportunity to set the stage for a fight that you can in fact win. It's just very important to make sure that when you do pick those fights, you know what you're doing, you're able to move, and you take the smart direction for every single fight that you do. So now you might ask yourself, what is there to do while playing Last Oasis as a solo player? I think your first goal is to attain as many fragments and then tablets as you can to progress through your tech trees. This will obviously help you establish a greater variety of walkers and tools to outfit on those walkers, and otherwise, you might want to have your own goal, like spending your time establishing a trade empire. Now that items move when the grid burns from trade station to trade station, you can establish set prices along the map from north to south, and always be purchasing and selling items between those tiles. Of course, you can also gain flots by doing quests, which is still a great way to earn them, as it also gives you a good amount of experience. Many of these quests, like killing Rupus, can be done while you're farming those resources as well, so it's a great way to give yourself some direction and earn extra rewards while doing so. You might want to get into quality crafting and find some high quality gear sets that you can keep at the trade station for dueling, or you might want to make all your flots from dueling itself, because you can now bet up to 10,000 flots on any 1v1. Lastly, you can spend a lot of your time building your base and perfecting the right build to keep enemy clans out while still being able to upkeep it at a standard rate with the amount of resources required. I think that pretty much sums up all the different aspects that I've found as a solo player I can take advantage of while playing LO. I'm very curious to find out more of what you guys think makes a big difference in your style and how you would help other people be a solo player. Leave a comment down below if you have anything you particularly like to do. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this guide and want to see more content about LO and other MMOs, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.